Hey fam, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me tell you about it. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard across Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast, just in one place. Now download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. You are listening to The Black Landscape with Andrea Spearman, where Black excellence is always trending. Welcome to this episode of The Black Landscape with Regina Evans. She is an Oakland artist and activist who wears many, many hats. Award-winning social justice poet, playwright, costumer, performer. She's the founder of Regina's Door, an Oakland-based social enterprise vintage clothing store that also operates as a creative arts healing and sanctuary space for survivors of sex trafficking. Ms. Evans, along with Amara Tabor-Smith, recently opened Conjure and Mend, a sewing salon for young survivors seeking to become skilled in the art of costume making. Ms. Evans is a modern-day abolitionist and a second-generation native of Oakland, currently an in-house costumer for the Ubuntu Theater Project. Hi, Ms. Regina.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm good. I'm in the middle of costuming, so I'm doing all my creative processing right now and then gonna start sewing. So just getting everything together.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. But I'm good. I'm in my salon, which is like a womb, so I'm good.
Great. Well, I've already spoken a little bit about your Black excellence, but if you would share with the audience, what does Black excellence means to you and how do you personify that?
Ooh. Just on a human level, it would have a lot to do with love, like the full measure of love. And I know we do that as Black folks very well and in such a deep way. And I think that's pretty much what I do with my work, or try to do with my work, though I fail sometimes. Pretty much all of my work is wrapped around that notion of me trying to figure out the deep parts of love and moving from that space. So I would say pretty much that sounds like a very nebulous answer, I know, but I literally do think that, because even when I'm doing my poetry, or when I'm designing something, I also do art, wall installations, it's very detailed. And there's a lot of love and nurturing put into the detail. And everything that my art form is very detailed. I remember one time I came across the meaning of Jehovah Rapha, healer. And it actually means, Rapha means to mend and to stitch. And I came across that as I was doing some sewing. I don't know how I came across it, but I came across it. I was blown away. And then because I hand sew a lot, I'm very drawn to sewing by hand. And I hand sew very well, which is a lost art, but I do it very well because I'm very drawn to it. And then I began to think about the determination of hand sewing. You have to intimately know your fabric, your thread, your eye has to be always on, my eye is always on intently on my stitching, how I'm stitching things. And And so I began to think about that, just like as us as humans, like, and meting out love for one another is like that intimate knowledge of something, and also allowing it to breathe at the same time, you know, and allowing it to form and not getting in the way of how it wants to move. And that's what I tried. I was like, oh wow. I was like, that's what I try to do. Even with my poetry, I try to, like, I'll have an idea, but I let it flow. I try to let it flow where it's supposed to go, not where I think it's supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
It is supposed to go, yeah.
Wow.
And the basis of my work is pretty much all of that. Like, once I found that out, it was almost like a release. I was like, whoa, okay, I get it.
Oh my gosh, there's so many layers to that.
Right? And that's like, but it's like keeping your eye on something
mm-hmm.
and releasing at the same time, which is an art form in and of itself, to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You know, to be the protector, and when it's needed, to be the releaser when it's needed, just all of it. So it's kind of like walking on a bridge sometimes whose planks are kind of loose, and then other times they're stable. And yeah, so that's my Black excellence, I think.
Yeah, no. Wow, you're holding so many different spaces. How did you start down this road? Like, which came first, like stitching or poetry or sex trafficking work? Like, because they all seem so separate but so commingled and textured together.
Yeah, so it has been a journey. It actually started when I was I lived in Australia for almost 15 years, and I was going through this like super deep spiritual experience. You know, that land there, the Aboriginal land, is filled with beautiful spirituality. I was having vivid dreams. And at the time I was having like all these dreams, I didn't realize I was kind of in the dream time. You know about the dream time, the Aboriginal?
No, please tell me.
So the dream time, for as I understand it, and I might not have the whole thing but in the dream time it's just like a whole nother world, but you get your answers there. For me, like, I get answers there. It's almost like I get answers to my work and how to do my work. I get advice there, wisdom. They're very prophetic dreams. And so I began to have those and they're very real. It's like me watching a movie. And that for me started, I've always had like very visual dreams, but it was different in that land. I was like, whoa, it was like I was, awake. And I began to have like these very visual, creative dreams. And so when I would wake up, I would do what was in the dream. And part of that was sewing. And I was also like healing from trauma. And so I started writing. I was just talking to someone else, Janae Darden, and she asked me when did I start writing? And, she's like, you do a lot with fabric. And she said fabric and writing. But I thought she said fabric as writing. And so I was like, that just stuck with me, because for me, it's really the same thing. Fabric and writing, they're like basically the same thing. And so I started doing those two things there. And so I had tons and tons and tons of poetry. And when I came home with a directive from God, that was this: go home and I will restore you. So that's a direction and a promise, right? But that's all that I knew. My landscape was very dark. I didn't know. I gave away everything. And a lot of people don't know this part of my story, but I literally gave away everything. So I came back to America with nothing.
Wow.
And with nothing after being there for 15 years. And so I had to start over. I was 45 years old. And right before I left, I went to a concert, and this very young woman came up to me and she said, "Can I pray for you?" And I was like, "Yes." Because I was like, in my mind, I was like, I don't even know what's going on. I don't know what I'm supposed to do when I get home. And she prayed for me. And she just looked at me. She said, "Are you going somewhere?" I said, I'm actually leaving in a couple of days. And she said, "All I see is darkness. But what I hear is that you're supposed to keep dropping seeds." And that bore out in my walk. While I'm home, I have nothing in my hand anymore, in terms of material, like nothing, after building up a life for like 15 years. But I have a promise. I have a direction, which is everything's going to be dark, but keep dropping seeds. And I'm like, what seeds? I had a lot of
right, like, say more, please.
Yeah, I had like a lot of spiritual guidance. And then once I got to this land, things started showing themselves. And so I was asked to teach a class, a creative writing class at a nonprofit. And I got to the nonprofit, and it was Dreamcatcher. And that's where I met Sarai Mazariegos. She was the youth coordinator there at the time. And so that was my first foray into working as an abolitionist. And that was like in 2007. So I just kept journeying. And I also knew that I wanted to reopen my store, because I had a store in Australia, a very beautiful boutique. And I just kept saying, I'm going to open my store and I'm going to use it as a platform. I was hella poor. Like, people were like, yeah, sure, right. Because I'm working these little $10 an hour jobs. And I'm saying the whole time, I'm going to reopen my store. And so it took me from 2007 to 2014. And I reopened my store. I opened it as Regina's Store to help support survivors of trafficking. That's how that happened. But I also, at the same time, used that poetry that I was writing in Australia to write my very first play. Because I didn't have anything in my hand materially, but I had my letters. And so I said, I'm going to write a play to raise awareness. So that's how that happened. And then Sarai actually helped me, and she helped bring support around the play. And she actually was in the play, the very first play. And
wow.
So I just kept going, and I kept writing other plays, because I didn't know how to write a play. I was just like, I'm gonna write a play. I got a little job in Central Works Theater. They hired me. I was there for 2 years, and they taught me so much and were very gracious with me. And so I got that job so I could learn how to actually stage a play. And they actually helped me on the very first play. They came on and did all the tech work. And you're a performer, so you know all that tech work and all that stuff.
Yes.
The theater for free, that's a lot of money. Because they did that all for free for me.
Wow.
And then I just kept going. There were some bumps and stuff in the road, but I just kept going, and then wrote another play, and then I kept sewing, and then I fell into costuming because I needed more. Well, I started costuming because I needed another avenue of money to, because I was putting out so much money to the community, and it was just a lot. So I was like, well, I know I have letters in my hand, I have sewing in my hand, so let me see if I can do costume. And so Dr. Iadeli Nzinga from Lower Bottom Players hired me as her in-house costumer. And nice. I was with her. Yeah, I was with Io Wordslinger, who's extraordinary, for 4 years. And then I just kept costuming, and I was doing my own shows. And then other people started asking me to costume, and that's how I started costuming.
Wow.
And I costume a lot now. I'm still costuming during the pandemic as well.
Now, see, that's what's amazing is taking something that's seems so innate and so particular and it's something you're so passionate about and taking it and using it during this time. And
Yep.
I think that's one thing about artists is like we take any situation and flip it, switch it, remix it to make it work
Yep.
for us and
Yep.
anytime with any
Yep.
amount of money.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. And that's the cool thing about costuming too, because there are places like Creative Reuse. Is that the name of it? Yeah, I think so. That place on, I think, like 40th and Telegraph.
Oh, I'm
I
not
think it's like
familiar.
Creative. Oh my gosh, yeah, it's so cool. You can go in there and get all these just beautiful materials and just little bits and baubles of stuff. And there's Goodwill. There's all kind of places that you can go where you don't have to spend a lot of money to create some really cool things. And I'll use anything. Like when I'm costuming or if I'm doing an installation, I put all my stuff like in a pile. It looks like, what is that? And then like once it all comes together, people are like, oh, okay, I see. So yeah,
Organized chaos.
It looks like a bunch of just things, objects. So, which is actually an art form. So, which I didn't know, but I that's one of my art forms, using like objects and making it into something.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that. I put that spirit into my costuming.
So, how did your work with sex trafficking start? Like, how did that become a kind of focus and heart?
That started, well, when I got home. That started when I started volunteering with Sarai at Dreamcatchers. I think that was my first.
Okay.
That was my first thing. Yeah, I didn't know it was I didn't know what the nonprofit was. Somebody said there's a nonprofit. They need a creative writing teacher. Can you volunteer? And I said yeah. And and I rock up, and that's what it is. And I was like, okay, I see you, God. I see you.
Yes, that guiding spirit.
It was a guiding spirit. Yep. Because I literally, if you ask me, like in the 90s, if this what I was going to be doing, I would have been like, what? No. No, I'm quite happy in my cute little store here in Australia with all my beautiful twirly dresses, vintage dresses that I purchased from all around the world. And yeah, I'm good. And actually, someone, so this is a really cool story. This is like how people are stubborn. People like Regina, you are stubborn. So I was mentoring a lot of young kids in my store in Australia. Usually they were fashion students. I got a call from a ministry who I think was called Mercy House. It was connected to this church called Hillsong. Mercy House, so now when I think about it, it's actually started back in Australia. So Mercy House was a safe house for survivors of trafficking and sexual assault. And so they contacted me and they said, we have a young woman here who read an article about you. She would like to come and work with you. Is that possible? And I said, yeah, sure. She can come and intern. She was amazing and very quiet, but very strong. And, those houses, they have a curfew. So one night I hear a knock on my door. It's like 10 o'clock. And so I look out and it's her. And she has a bucket and some stuff in it. And she comes in and she's like lit. And this young woman was very just calm and like a very sweet spirit. So I opened the door, it was like fire. She came in like whoosh, and she was like, sit down. I was like, what are you doing? I was like, first of all, it is way past your curfew. So I'm worried for her because you can get kicked out. And she says, I'm here to wash your feet. You are not doing what you're supposed to be doing. I was like, what? And so I just literally, she did. This is what this young woman did. I literally just wanted her to wash my feet so she can get back to the house so she wouldn't get in trouble. So I just was like, okay, like, da 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 da. And she was very quiet. Washed my feet, da da da. She said, I love you. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I remember looking at her and said, yeah, I'm helping people. Because I was helping a lot of people through that store too. I was like, I'm praying, like I'm doing my thing. And she just looked at me like, okay, I'm going now. And she left. I never saw her again. And that was probably 2 years before I actually left Australia. And I think about her so much because this young woman risked herself to come and deliver me a message. And I still was like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But think about what she did. This is a young woman that went through some trauma. And she risked herself to deliver a message to me. And I said, no. But I got it later, like when my head wasn't so hard. So, and that's part of us, I think, of me wanting to do what I wanted to do. And God and spirit and ancestors are like, no, you're needed in the land where you were born. There's a need. So that's where you getting ready to go.
There's definitely a need.
Yeah, be stubborn all you want. But yeah, I think about her a lot. I hope that I somehow, get to see her again. She was very important.
That's amazing. It's like messages that are meant for you are meant for you. Times that are meant for you are meant for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing that vision was sent forth through that young lady.
Man.
And it had to be for you, for it to get to you, for you to know that was something that was truly meant for you.
Right, but
because it was so out the ordinary.
I thought something was wrong with her. Yeah, at that time. Right.
She said, like, no, something is wrong with you. You're not living your full potential.
Right. Exactly.
And then doing that work here in Oakland, do you think the landscape has changed as far as what you're seeing survivors and as far as like these kind of behaviors happening in the streets of Oakland from when you first started doing this work till now?
I mean, it's increased, especially during COVID, it spiked. So, and I also see from when I started in 2007, the girls are younger. And so, yeah. And during COVID, there's a spike. So, but I also see the community starting to help out. And I know it's a hard issue. It's not like us, because this is Oakland. We are compassionate, loving people here, but it's hard. It's a hard fight, partially because we don't have enough help from the community. But I understand it because, I mean, it is a seriously painful issue. And it really isn't an issue, I think, that everybody's heart can take, because it's a marathon. It's not like you need people who literally have dedicated their life to doing this. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree that it's a very heavy work, and it's definitely not for the lighthearted. Or you have to be tenderhearted yet strong at the same time.
Yes.
For people who are interested in getting into this work or wanting to contribute somehow, what's the best way to do that during this time?
I think I would say get into the flow of what's already going on. So contact organizations to see how they could help having their needs met. There's Missy, there's Shade, Dreamcatchers, 3 good organizations to contact. Also, Nola Brantley does really wonderful trainings, and right now she's doing them online through Zoom. If you go to nolabrantley.org, nolabrantley.speaks.org, you can sign up for her classes, because I think the first step is to actually get trained, get some training under your belt. And Nola is one of the best trainers in America, if not internationally. She is badass, because I still take her trainings, and I'm blown away like all the time. And I've been doing this work for a very long time. I know Sarai is going to start, through Shade, is going to start doing some trainings for people that want to learn how to do outreach. So I would say training, contact some organizations, do some research.
Thank you for sharing those.
You're welcome. Start there. Because it's always good to get into the flow, into the river of what's going on, you know? And also too, if people have their own ideas, like do your own creative stuff, but get training first. I know I've had people get mad at me about that, but I'm like, I will not back down from, you need to get some training.
Yes.
Because we re-injure and reharm people and ourselves sometimes without that. So
yes, I agree with that. I wouldn't recommend anyone jump into any new venture without some training or research or chatting with people who are already in the field.
Yeah, but trust me, people do. I'm doing a thing for Black Women is God, an exhibit, but I'm doing dolls, and so I'm going to costume 3 dolls.
Oh, nice. And that's going to be over at Soma Arts, right?
It's me online, but I think that's where, it's going to be too. I'm not exactly sure. But I'm making 3-foot dolls.
Nice.
And so I'm making their costumes too. It's going to be wild. I'm really excited. I've never made dolls that big before. And they're standing dolls. They're going to be on a stand. Yeah. So that's my next costuming thing that I can actually talk about. Costuming dolls.
Nice. So when you're thinking about costuming, or directors ask you to come to be a part of a new work or a new play, how does that process start? Does it start with what's on the pages as far as description, or do you feel it in your spirit? What's that process like?
It starts with color for me. It always starts with color. And then I get the visuals of it in my dreams. I get the colors in my dreams. And then I get the visuals of it in my dreams. So it literally like comes out of my dreams. And then it also comes like in the quiet, and I'm just thinking, and I'll, quote unquote, see something, and I'm like, ooh, okay. Or I might be like watching a movie, and I'll see like a little bit of something. Like I was watching a movie 2 nights ago, and I was like, ooh. So I took a screenshot of this. There was just a small detail. I was like, I need that detail. And then I just tweak stuff. So, or, a lot of it is just visual things for me. I might see a landscape, and then I try to recreate the pattern. But it always starts with color for me.
Nice.
Yeah. And also, I don't know really what's going to, because I put a lot of details on my costumes. And so I don't know what that is going to look like until I start doing it. So like, I know when I did costume Midsummer Night Dream out at Marin Shakespeare, and one of the fairies, Oluchi, I wanted to do like flowers, and the whole front of the dress, I ended up doing the whole front, like all around the neckline, all down the front and around the bottom, and all these beautiful bright flowers. And But when I first thought of it, I just had like a bit like on the neck, and they were gonna drape down, but that didn't happen. But it turned out it was amazing. There's like one picture. It's like one of my favorite shots of one of the costumes I've done.
Wow. See, sometimes you even surprise yourself.
All the time with costume, I'd be like, oh shoot, that's not but that's dope. Okay. If I could just get like, I pull in a lot of things, and then I just let them breathe and speak. So
wow.
Yeah, that's how that process is. So I just never know. I don't know how the costumes, I don't know how they're gonna look, but I know they're gonna be beautiful, and all I'm feeling is beautiful and impeccable.
Impeccable. It's definitely a word I would use while describing what I've seen from you.
Yeah, and for this, like, that's into these costumes, it's like beautiful, impeccable. Like, that's what kind of not really pretty, but beautiful. I did look up that word a little bit today and delve into it, but
which one?
Beautiful.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because that's what I'm hearing. So, and very detailed, and take my time.
Oh my gosh, such amazing work. Where can people learn more about you and support whatever projects that you're working on?
I do have an Instagram. It's under Regina's Door, and Facebook. I post more on my Facebook than I do on my Instagram. So, and I am in the process of doing a website, because I don't have one. I have a Regina's Door website that I don't use, but I want like Regina Evans artist. And because I feel like that's what my life has morphed into, is like an artist, which I didn't know that I was until Karen.
Yeah, you are.
I didn't know though. Like, Karen Nephew asked me for the 2018, this 2020, right?
Mm-hmm.
She asked me, she said, can you do an installation for Black Woman is God? And I was like, Karen, I'm not an artist. And she'd come to Regina's Door, and she just looked at me like, and she said, have you seen your store? Your store is an installation. And I was like, I know I'm a theater artist, but I didn't know it was like, any other kind of artist, really, I don't know. It just wasn't,
weren't connected, right?
Yes. And I said, I don't think I can do this wall that you want me to do, Karen. And she said, you can. And she said, you're an artist. And she said, okay, bye. And she left.
And twirled away.
And twirled away. I remember watching her walk down the street going, what? And that was my first art installation that I did. I did the one where people took pictures in front of it. I did like an ancestral photo booth. Oh. For 2018 Black Woman is God. And then from there, I do like walls all the time now. I'm like, I did me and Nisha DeLovely, we Conjure Men, we decorated all the walls here. They're wild.
I've seen them.
Yes, right. You have. Yep. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And where's Conjuring Men located?
I don't really tell people.
Oh, okay. No worries.
Well, I tell people, but I don't tell people like on interviews and stuff. So, okay. Like, it doesn't have any signage or anything like that. So, because when I first started Regina's Door, I did, I had the address up, and I was like, this is where it is. Next thing I know, there was exploiters outside of my door sending me messages. I was like, what? I was like, oh, so like with this one, I just don't really say, but people know, because like you've been here, but it's not something that I say publicly.
Just to keep the space sacred and safe and welcoming to those who need it.
Exactly.
No worries.
And and we need some underground spaces.
Yes. Yes.
So We need some underground safe spaces.
Yes, safe spaces
Mm-hmm.
are
So
definitely needed, especially
this
in
is
our little
that.
city of Oakland.
Yes, this is that.
Thank you for speaking with me today. You're such an amazing person, artist, creative, just
Listen,
goddess.
we're reflections. Like every time I see you, I'm like, oh my God, I knew her when she was a baby. Like that is a trip for me. You know? Like literally, like I knew you when you was like, you know, you were just well, we last. And here you are doing your thing, like all up in the community. Just and the one thing I just want to say this about you is, you know, you have a knack for sending people just, hey, how you doing? I'm thinking about you, or just popping up. Like I won't even know you coming or something, and I'll look out and I'm like, oh, you know, it's very comforting.
Is
The
it?
support, yes, yes, yes. Because there have been times where I'm in like a deep funk, and you'll send me a message, or you'll send me like I remember, I think when we first started doing the installations, you sent me some money for the installations. I don't know if you remember.
Well, yes, I do. You know, I have to support where I can when I can.
Yes, but you don't have to, but you do. And it's the timing of your support. For me, it's been the timing of your support. It's always come at a time where I've needed it. And I don't think I've ever told you that before.
No,
But
this is news to me, but I'm
yes, but that's what's happened. Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I'm grateful that, you know, spirit can guide me to be a
That's
support to
what's
others on time and like not even have me be aware and just let
yeah.
it marinate in that good moment for the other person and for them to be
Yes.
grateful in that moment. Because sometimes, yeah, because I didn't know that until he
I
just told
know.
me.
I
So
never told you. But yeah, that's what's happened. And I'm just like, I knew her when she was a little baby. I remember one time I saw you, me and Nisha, we were performing over in San Francisco, and I looked out and you were sitting to the right.
oh, but that had to be at not Joe Good. What's the space behind it?
I
It's
forgot.
like
But
Project
Artur.
Artur. There we go.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I was like, what? Yeah, that was good. Yeah, it's just your timing. So, because that was like a very like emotional night for both me and Nisha. And like with that particular performance, spirit was moving so strongly, and the
It
things we
was.
were feeling was so strong. So yeah. And then you just popped up. I was like, okay.
Yeah, because I'm like, I have to be in the building to support this, especially because it was part of Fresh Festival, I think.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And I think that was one of like my first times going to the festival and being, was I part of it that year?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah,
Was
you
that
were.
last year?
That was not last year, it was 2 years ago. Because I think you were performing the next week.
Oh, you know, see, time passes.
Listen.
You blink and like, wait, what
Yep.
year was that? Yes. So I
That year's
wanted to
gone.
support the other artists that were in the festival. And I'm like, okay, oh, here's somebody I know. Let me
Yeah.
go be an audience member. And also like, if sometimes I place myself in places where I know the artist because there might be audience who don't understand the work. And sometimes I think about
Yeah.
like, oh, maybe I could be like a little helpful tour guide in the audience.
Yes.
And be
Yes.
like, well, what are they talking about? I'd be like, oh, well, you know, if you go to this and that, also you can follow them
Yeah.
at blankety blank Instagram and Facebook and hype people
Oh,
up like
okay.
after the show.
Right.
I feel like that's part
Okay.
of like
Yeah.
my artist supporting artists like kind of mantra.
No,
I like to be there.
Yeah, well, I thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much for listening to this first episode of The Black Landscape with me, Andrea Spearman. Make sure you leave your feedback in the comments. Episodes will be released second and fourth Wednesdays. Follow The Black Landscape on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to learn more. Goodbye.